Hey guys, Abel here, back with another video, and in today's video I'm going to do something very special, and that is I'm going to shatter the biggest dilemma in the world of fitness, the biggest dilemma that you're struggling with day in, day out, and that is the question, cut or bulk? Should I cut or bulk? Which one should I do? And I know that this is your biggest dilemma ever, because every single week, several times on Instagram, in my message request, a new message pops up that goes something like, "Hey Abel, should I cut or bulk?" And a couple of pictures sent over. Sometimes it's a bit more polite. It's, "Hey Abel, sorry to bother. If I send you a couple of pictures, could you tell me if I should cut or bulk?" By the way, the answer to that is the same every single time. No, I'm not going to tell you that. Why? I don't really feel like explaining it. Let's just say that by this point, when I see a message request like this and I read the words cut, bulk, hey Abel, sorry to bother, I see pictures, an automated sequence begins in my body, which just goes delete, and that's it. So those messages just get deleted right away, all right? So don't message me with things like that. I'm not going to answer you. Sorry. But I'm not that big of a douchebag. I'm trying to be nice, so I will make this video and hopefully I can help out more of you at the same time instead of answering these questions one-on-one. So I'm going to basically give you the full-on recipe of how to make good decisions about your cut or bulk query and how to actually make that decision for yourself. I made some notes for this because I took this very seriously, so I'm going to give you a full recipe. So we will need several ingredients for making this decision. So I have the recipe here written down. First of all, you will need some basic understanding, okay? A couple of basic principles that you will need to understand to make this decision well. The second thing that you will need is your imagination. You will see exactly how and why. Then you will need some realistic expectations. You will also see how and why. And then you will also need a mirror. Now, I guess I should add, you will also need your eyesight. So maybe I'm a little bit too naive to assume that everybody has that who watches this video. So anyway, let's start with the first part of this equation, and that is the basic understanding part. The first thing that you need to understand is that both cutting and bulking are a form of investment into your future ideal physique. Everybody has a dream physique that they want to attain, and both cutting and bulking are a form of investment into that physique. Cutting is the best short-term investment into that physique. I'm saying that because with cutting, you can get really impressive results in a relatively short period of time. Okay, we are talking about 1 to 4 months. In that time frame, with cutting, you can achieve really impressive results. There is this saying in fitness that goes, the best way to look like you gained 10 pounds of muscle is to lose 10 pounds of fat. And that is for a good reason, because if you get leaner, you will just look better. Okay, you get more definition, your proportions improve, whatever amount of muscle mass you have, as unimpressive as you might think it is going to stand out more, it's going to show up more because there is less fat covering it, so you will look more muscular. So that's why we say that cutting is the best short-term investment into your goal physique. Bulking, on the other hand, is the best long-term investment into that goal physique, okay? So if you don't just want to look more muscular, but you actually want to be more muscular, then bulking is the best way to achieve that, okay? That is when you're going to build the most amount of muscle, when you're in a calorie surplus. We are not talking about short-term gains here, we are talking about for the long term, so for the next 6+ months, okay? It could be as short as 6 months, it could be as long as 24 months. If in that time frame you really want to lay down the foundations of a really good physique, bulking is the name of the game. Okay, it's one thing to look more muscular and revealing whatever amount of muscle mass you have now, but if you actually want to be more muscular, you will also need to do some bulking. Okay, it's kind of like if you want to feel richer now, a good way to achieve that is to hang around with poor people. Okay, you will feel rich amongst them. But if you actually want to be richer, then eventually you will also have to make some money. So kind of the same thing here. Unfortunately, what I said about cutting and bulking and them being a good short and long-term investment, unfortunately, the inverse of that is true as well. So cutting is an amazing short-term investment into your goal physique, but it's not the best long-term investment, all right? Because you're just not going to build the most amount of muscle when you're going through a cutting phase. You can still put on size. You can absolutely recomp and put on muscle while you're cutting, even as a reasonably advanced trainee, but it's not going to maximize the amount of muscle you can put on. All right, that's what you're doing during bulking. And at the same time, bulking is an amazing long-term investment into your physique, but it's not the best short-term investment. Okay, bulking for the most part is not the time when you're going to look better and better in the short term. Maybe in the initial weeks, you will feel your muscles out more, you will be more glycogen loaded. That definitely does happen, but generally speaking, the longer you're in a bulking phase, yes, you're laying the foundations, you're building more and more muscle, but your appearance actually starts becoming progressively worse and worse. Because while I'm a firm believer in that a bulking phase doesn't need to become a fattening up protocol, you don't need to get sloppy fat during a bulk, but still, even on the most optimized, smartly done bulk, you will put on some body fat. And generally, the longer you are in a gaining phase, the more muscle you will build, but also the more fat you will put on. So eventually, you're just going to get progressively worse and worse looking. That is just the way it is. And before anybody asks, yes, you can do some mini cuts during bulking, but it's only going to save you from that so much, okay? You're still not going to get progressively leaner as the bulk goes on. You're just mitigating the fat gain by doing these mini cuts, all right? So, what do we do with all of that information? Short-term investment cutting, long-term investment bulking. Our parents always taught us that long-term investments are the best, right? You should never compromise long-term benefits for something that is only going to benefit you in the short term, right? So what does that mean? We should always be bulking because that's the best long-term investment? No, that's silly. Sometimes short-term gains can be just as valuable, right? It's kind of like the best way to make money in the short term is to take some quick paying job. The best way, or one of the best ways to make a lot of money in the long term, is to go to a good university and study to become a surgeon, right? If you're a good surgeon, you're gonna have a good income for the rest of your life. Now, if in 2 weeks you need to pay a large sum of money to someone, what should you do? Should you then just go, okay, I'm gonna go to university, in 10 years I'm gonna have my degree and I'll have a lot of money, so that's how I'm going to pay? No, you need to pay in 2 weeks, so probably you should be taking the quick paying job. So same thing in the case of cutting and bulking, it all depends on the context. Now we actually check off the first ingredient that we need from our list, the basic understanding. Now we arrive to the second ingredient, and that is your imagination. All right, so I want you to close your eyes and imagine your dream ideal physique. What would you like to look like? All right, stop. You're already BSing me. You're running wild. I can tell already. You're thinking of some ridiculous looking Instagram influencer who is 200 pounds of pure muscle and 5% body fat. That's not gonna happen, okay? Get real. Think of someone reasonable, okay? This is where we will need the second ingredient right away, or the third actually, and that is realistic expectations. So think of someone that it's ambitious. Maybe you cannot quite get there, but at least it's not out of this world, over the top ridiculous. For me, it would be, for example, Brian Borstein, okay? He is what I would consider to be my dream physique. Can I get there? Maybe not quite, but it's not completely ridiculous. It's ambitious, potentially attainable. So think of something like that. Now, we got the second and third ingredient. So you use your imagination, you also use your realistic expectations. Now, we will need the fourth ingredient, and that is a mirror. Okay, so look into that mirror, and I want you to evaluate what's missing for you to get that physique. I don't want to get offensive here, but I'm going to make a prediction that at this point, you're both fatter than that ideal physique, and you also have less muscle than what that ideal physique model of yours has, all right? So we need both. We both need to get bigger, and we also need to get leaner. But then once again, we are back to the drawing board. Which one should we do first? Get leaner or get bigger first? Now, this is where we come back to the basic premise that cutting is a really, really good short-term investment. You can get great results in a short period of time. So if you want to get closer to this ideal physique as quickly as possible, a really good way to do that would be to get leaner. because in 1 to 4 months, you can probably get comparably lean at least. If you complete a successful cutting phase, you will probably get close to that. Now, there is still a lot of work to be done because you will also need to get bigger, but at least you got half of the equation down already. So if you're like me and someone like Brian Borstein is your ideal physique kind of model, then a good approach to take would be to look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I considerably fatter than this guy? If the answer is yes, then cutting is probably your best approach. Now, can you start out with bulking? Do you have to cut? The answer is physiologically, in the long term, it really doesn't matter. You're getting to the same place anyway. However, psychologically, there is a huge difference, because if you're already considerably fatter than what your goal physique is, then during the bulk, what's going to happen is that you're just going to get further and further away from this goal physique, at least visually. And that definitely has some negative psychological implications, because you got into this whole game because you wanted to look a certain way. And if each day you wake up and you're just seeing yourself getting further and further from the way you want to look, then it's not going to be a psychologically rewarding process, and it's going to be harder to be fully committed to what you're doing. If in the beginning you were just miles away from your goal physique, now you're going to be dozens of miles away from this. And what I tend to see is that people start out with a gaining phase in this context, and then 1 month later, maybe 2 months later, they're starting to have second thoughts. And they start saying, oh, well, I don't know, how long do you think I should keep this gaining phase up? Maybe I could do a mini cut, this and that. If you have that mindset, your productivity on a gaining phase is already hampered. Eventually, you will have those thoughts no matter what, because as I said, you will put on some body fat, but ideally, you would only have those thoughts creeping in like 5 or 6 months into a gaining phase, not 1 month into a gaining phase. On the other hand, if you get lean first and you're at least comparably lean to the way you eventually want to look, then the first couple of months of your gaining phase is actually really not that bad, even from a visual perspective, because you will fill out more, you will be more glycogen loaded, you will be stronger in the gym, and you really won't be seeing yourself getting worse and worse visually. Eventually, after 5-6 months of gaining, maybe you will start seeing a little bit of softness, but not right away. So that's why I would say that if you're considerably fatter than your goal physique, then purely for psychological optimization, it's probably a better idea to get lean first. Okay, so basically that is the proper decision making when it comes to deciding whether you should cut or bulk. Either one is fine. Both are an investment. And when it comes to investments, there is no wrong answer per se, but from a psychological perspective and from the perspective of what's going to make this whole endeavor more rewarding for the next year to come, there is a better and a worse answer. And that is the decision-making process that I use as a coach and as a consultant. I look at someone's physique and I'm not thinking about P-ratios or this and that. I'm thinking about, okay, what's going to maximize the chances that this person is going to succeed in the next 6 to 24 months, and what's going to make the whole thing more rewarding and more fulfilling. Sometimes people just don't know this answer for themselves because they don't have the experience. And I have worked with enough people, I have interacted with enough people for me to have a pretty good idea by this point. Okay, and this is the basic arithmetic that I'm using myself. Are there exceptions to all of this? Is this always the decision-making process that I use? Of course not. Of course there are exceptions. For every rule, there is that one annoying exception that proves the rule. But assuming that you are like most people, this is what I would say. The general adage to get lean first before you start bulking, it's very, very true. And not for some woo-woo, super scientific, whatever reason. No, it's because we are humans. We are not robots, and some things are just going to make this whole fitness journey more fulfilling. Now, we got this out of the way. Another thing I want to address, or two other things I actually want to address. I intentionally didn't go into the whole P-ratio concept, this whole idea that you should get lean first because then you're going to have better insulin sensitivity and lower inflammation levels and you're going to build more muscle that way. Look guys, for one, this is an unsettled debate in the industry at the moment. There are some very weak indications that yes, You might put on less muscle if you get too fat, but there is also tons of evidence for the contrary, okay? I don't have a final, super solidified stance on this. I'm inclined to think that it's not going to be a big deal either way, okay? I would say that if getting as big and muscular is your only concern, don't worry, you can get fat and muscular. Bulk up to 30% body fat, you're gonna put on more fats, but you're probably also gonna put on a lot more muscle, all right? So if that's your only concern, don't worry. This is why I didn't even mention this as a base consideration for whether you should cut or bulk. The reason why I bring this up is, for one, I know that some of you were wondering about this, and maybe some of you were expecting me to address this question. But at the end of the day, I really don't care. And the reason I don't care is because this is a problem that always solves itself in the real world. Because of what I said earlier. Most people will not want to bulk up to 30% body fat because most people got into this whole game because they wanted to look a certain way. Okay, so when you hear me saying things like, well, if you get too fat too fast during a bulk, you will have to cut eventually again. That's not because of some P-ratio optimization. It's not because your insulin sensitivity goes to shit or you have too much systemic inflammation. No, it's because you will want to cut anyway. No matter what I say or what I do, that's just what you will want to do. Okay, so once again, I've interacted with enough people and I know how you guys tend to tick, and hence the recommendation that I gave in this video. And then there is one last thing that I want to address in this video, and that is a few words on skinny fat individuals. Okay, so I know that some of you will be watching this video and you will be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. If you're too fat, then cut. If you're too skinny, then bulk. But I'm skinny fat. Okay, I'm in between. I'm too fat to bulk, but I'm too skinny to cut. If I cut down, then I'm just going to disappear completely. I'm already disappearing. Like, I look tiny in my clothes. I look fat with my shirt off. What should I do? Okay, let's think about this logically. You're skinny fat. Okay, so there is a fat part in that sentence or in that phrase. So if I'm not mistaken, you're fatter than what your ideal physique is. I know you're also skinny, I get that, you disappear in clothes, but you're fatter than what your goal physique is. Considerably fatter probably, right? That guy that you're dreaming of having his physique, he has abs, probably decent abs. You probably don't, all right? So what did we say about people that are fatter than their ideal physique? They should get leaner. Now again, I know that you're too skinny, I get that, but here is the thing. This is an unpopular or politically incorrect thing to say. But the only difference between skinny fat people and just fat people, so the only difference between someone who is skinny fat versus someone who is just fat or maybe muscly and fat, is that when you're in a skinny fat kind of position right now, you will have to accept that no matter what you do, you're not going to get 100% satisfied with the outcome in the short term. That's the only difference. As far as the principles go and what you should be doing, it doesn't change a thing, okay? That's the unfortunate truth here. Yes, someone who is not skinny fat but just fat, or maybe muscular but kind of fat, yeah, they are fortunate in that if they complete the cutting phase for the next 1 to 4 months, they will be pretty happy with the end outcome because they will reveal some muscle mass and they will be just lean. Yeah, if you're skinny fat and you're already kind of small in clothes and only look fat with your shirt off, then yeah, if you cut down, you're going to look even smaller in your clothes. You're going to disappear even more. However, this is the thing. It's hard to believe when you're in that situation, but a pretty skinny but lean physique still looks much, much better than a skinny and sort of fat physique. Okay, that is just how it is. Yes, you're going to look a little bit too stringy, but at least you will be lean and you will have some good definition. All right? Look around on the internet. There are tons of people with that kind of a physique. They actually look pretty decent. Are you going to get as satisfied as you would ideally be? No, but that's a good first step. And remember, after that, you're going to go into a gaining phase. So you will start filling out and you will be more glycogen loaded and gain some intramuscular fat. And as the months go by, you will actually start getting bigger and a bit more buff. And then at the end of your gaining phase, you will actually look pretty good. And then when you cut down again, then you won't have this whole skinny fat dilemma. because you will be leaner and bigger than before. But in the short term, you will kind of have to suck up that you will look a bit stringier than what you would want. But that's the only difference between skinny fat people and just fat people, or muscly and fat people. Just a bit of acceptance that in the short term, you're not gonna have your dream physique yet. But hey, sometimes you just have to wait for the good things to come. All right? So that's pretty much it on the whole cut or bulk front. That's my decision-making process. That is the math, the arithmetics, the magic behind making a good decision on this. Don't message me on Instagram. If you want, you can book a consultation with me. It's not that crazy expensive at the moment, and you can pick my brain for an entire hour. We can speak about nothing else but your cutting and bulking dilemma. But Instagram, again, automated sequence. Delete. Back to work. Okay, that's what's gonna happen. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe for more content like this. Push the bell notification icon and check out the video description if you wanna be working together with me, if you wanna be coached by me, mentored by me, or if you just wanna do a consultation, you find information about all of that. But for now, I wanna thank you for your attention, and I'm gonna see you in the next video.